Hello everyone, it's Chris from CA Homestead, and today I'm going to show you how to make focaccia. So bread making is perfect on a nice Sunday when it's kind of gray outside. There's not a lot to do and you're just going to sit around the house. It's a perfect day to make bread. So everyone's kind of intimidated by making bread, but bread is really not that scary. So I'm going to show you the ingredients and then I'll take you over how to do it. So we have AP flour, salt, sugar and yeast, olive oil, and we have warm water. So you want to get your water warm and not hot. If you have it too cold, then your yeast won't bloom, and if you have it too hot, you'll kill your yeast. I think the package suggested somewhere around 100 to 110 degrees, and you can use a thermometer. On my setting for my hot water heater, it's just kind of as hot as the water goes. And whenever you put it into a cool container, it kind of cools it down a little bit. You can always use a thermometer, but just kind of lukewarm to the touch. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and add the yeast and the sugar into the water and get our yeast to start blooming. And I'm going to let this sit for about 15 minutes. You'll know whenever your yeast is ready. You'll see it start to foam at the top, and you can also smell it. It smells fantastic. It's kind of the ingredient in bread that whenever you smell a nice fresh loaf of bread and you're like, oh my gosh, it smells so good, it's the yeast in it that makes it smell like that. So once our yeast is ready, we're going to go ahead and go on to the next step. Okay, so the yeast is ready, and you can see what I mean when I said you'll know whenever it's ready. It's nice and foamy. It has a great aroma to it. It makes you crave bread. So now we're ready to get started. And I'm going to use my stand mixer, and I have my dough hook attachment. You don't have to have a stand mixer to make this. It just makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and add my flour into my mixer before I add the dough hook, just because it's easier. So again, this is just AP flour. Get that added in. And a puff of flour to go all over your kitchen. If you're not making a mess, you're not having fun. Alright, there we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add my dough hook attachment on there. Alright. So you want to start this off on low, and I'm going to go ahead and start it. If you start it on high or even medium, you're going to have flour all over your kitchen, even more than what I've already done. So I'm going to go ahead and add our water and our yeast mixture. And you can already smell it. It smells fantastic. Get all that in there. Alright. Then we're going to add our salt. And our olive oil. And so this is actually only half of the olive oil that you're going to end up adding. If you don't have a lot of olive oil at home, go ahead and get some more. You're going to use a lot of olive oil making this focaccia. Alright, so once it starts to get incorporated, we're going to turn it up to medium and then mix it on medium for a couple of minutes. And again, you want to go ahead and make sure that it gets well mixed. I'm going to go ahead and grab a spatula. Just so that I can scrape down the sides. Okay, so just scrape down your sides. Alright, and so now all the flour is incorporated. So we're going to go ahead and turn the mixer up to medium. You really want to develop that gluten, so that's what makes a nice chewy focaccia. So you want to knead on medium for about 5 to 6 minutes. And you see how this is a lot easier with a stand mixer. Again, you can do this by hand, but if you have a stand mixer, it's just so much easier. Okay, so it's done mixing, and I've cleaned off the board, and I've grabbed a little flour. I'm going to go ahead and dust the board. Now, focaccia is a very loose dough, so don't let that scare you. It's going to be kind of loose. Go ahead and flour up the board so it doesn't stick. And then I'm going to dump the dough onto the board. And then just knead it lightly, just to kind of form it into a ball. And then we're going to put it back into the pan and let it rise. So let's go ahead and get it out. And so you can already see it's a very loose dough. Actually, let me flour my hands a little bit more. Oh, focaccia is so messy. I love it. Focaccia is great if you have soups or if you're making sandwiches. You can just dip it in olive oil and some balsamic. It's fantastic for that. So you see the dough is very, very loose. So you want to make sure that your board is floured very well or you're going to have a sticky mess. Get it all out of the bowl. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and flour the top of it as well before I jump in. Alright. So you can see it's kind of starting to come together. Okay, so now that I've been kneading it by hand and I've kind of got it starting to form into a ball, I'm going to go ahead and add it back into our bowl. And I've added a little oil to our bowl just so it doesn't have any restriction whenever it starts to rise. So just kind of oil up the sides of the bowl so that it doesn't have any trouble rising. And then we're ready to add it back into our mixer bowl. And again, this is a tacky dough. That's not gonna change. Focaccia is supposed to be tacky. Try to get whatever off the board that has stuck a little bit. Alright, so now we're going to set this in a draft-free place, just somewhere that the air conditioning isn't going to be blowing on it. I tend to pop mine in the microwave, and do not turn your microwave on, but it just ends up being a nice draft-free place. So we're going to let it rise, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so now our dough has doubled in size, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So I'll show you. It smells, oh my gosh, it smells so good. So you see how big it is? And it's nice and bubbly. So now we're going to put some olive oil into a baking sheet. And it seems like a lot of olive oil, and I mean, it's half a cup. But that's what focaccia is all about. It uses a lot of olive oil. It's a nice and flaky and crusty bread. And it's fantastic. Just trust me with the olive oil. And you want to get the olive oil nice and spread out on your pan. Alright, now so let's go in with the dough. Alright. So now you just want to work the dough into your pan. Spread it out. And I'm going to get some olive oil on my hand so the dough doesn't stick. Oh, this looks so good. Alright, so you see the way that I'm kind of pushing my hands out like that? So focaccia is not supposed to be a smooth dough. If you ever had focaccia, the top is nice and crusty. It has a lot of cracks in it. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and turn the dough over in the pan because you want to make sure that both sides have plenty of olive oil on it. It's going to be so good. Just go ahead and spread it out so that it gets into the corners very nicely. And again, whenever you're doing this motion with your fingers, go ahead and make holes in it. You want it to be nice and crusty. Make sure it's spread out to all the corners of your pan. And I'm telling you, whenever you put this in your pan, you're going to think that I am crazy because I've told you to put way too much olive oil, but it works. As the bread cooks, it starts to soak up all of that olive oil. It's going to have a nice crusty top on it, and it's going to be great. So once I get this spread out, we're going to set it for another hour to let it rise again in the pan. Okay, so the focaccia is now done rising the second time, and I did put it in the oven just so that it could rise. I did not turn the oven on. So now you can see that it has filled the whole pan. and it's nice and it's kind of risen. So over the top, I'm gonna add some salt, some Italian seasoning, and I'm actually gonna drizzle a little more olive oil over the top. I know you guys think I'm crazy, but trust me, this recipe works. So, and actually I have the J.Q. Dickinson salt. This is a perfect time for this salt. It's nice and coarse. I'm gonna add some Italian seasoning. And like I said, a little more olive oil. I told you, if you don't have enough olive oil before you start this recipe, just run down to the store and get some, because you're gonna need it. Okay, so the focaccia is done. The house smells amazing. And look at that beautiful golden crust. So I'm gonna take it out into this cooling rack. And you don't wanna cut into it until it's cool because all the moisture will run out of the bread. So I'm just gonna pop it onto this cooling rack, and once it's cool, then we can enjoy some focaccia. Okay everyone, so the focaccia is ready, and we've been craving it. We've been smelling it for the past couple of hours. So now we're ready to dig in. I actually have some pesto that I made in a previous video on the side, and it's going to be fantastic with the focaccia. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it up so that we can taste it. So you can hear...
As my mouth is watering.
Yeah, right? So you can hear as I'm cutting it how crusty the bread has gotten. And you see the top, it's nice and crusty. It has all these little nooks and crannies and crags and whatever other words.
I gotta say, I thought it was not gonna come out because your dough was
very loose.
Yeah,
it's
like
a very
sticky.
loose dough, yeah.
But I mean, what do I know about bread?
And all the olive oil, it just soaked it right in. So, there you go.
And you said this is a pesto made with pumpkin seeds instead of what is it, pine?
Instead of pine nuts. Yeah. I just happen to have some pumpkin seeds sitting around, so. So good. Oh my gosh.
So literally I watched as I bit down, it literally sponged back up. Like what?
Oh my gosh, that pesto is so good. This with some soup or as a sandwich, fantastic. My mouth's full. But you guys don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you can find this whole recipe at shopcityhomestead.com. You can also find the salt that's on top. It's nice and coarse. You can find that at shopcityhomestead.com.
Chew your mouth closed, man.
I can't, it's just so good.